In this episode, we have a real live couple doing this house hacking thing in one of the coolest ways that I have ever seen. They didn't just start with, well, they did start with one roommate, but they have been in their last house for 3.5 years with 6 additional roommates. They are a beautiful couple that has found a way to work together. And in this episode, we talk about some of their strategies and their tips for how they've worked together. I think it applies to an intimate relationship. And it also, I think some of the things they share apply to just partnerships in general. And so we talk about that towards the end, but they're doing this house hacking thing in what I think is a really cool way. They've been making that sacrifice on the front end to build wealth the long term through house hacking, meaning they're living in the home while they have an additional 6 roommates. And so they drop all kinds of gold on, first of all, how they changed their mindset from just the traditional vehicles of investing to real estate investing, how they got to that point. Might be similar to some of you listening's journey on how you got to that point where you said, I'm all in on real estate. This is the way to achieve wealth. And so we talk about that, their journey, and then we talk about all the little tips. We actually go super nitty gritty on how they vet their tenants, how they handle pets, how they label things, what locks they use, all kinds of things in their house. And I think what's unique about this than a lot of the other episodes I've done in the past is that they're living in the house. And they've been doing this for 3.5 years, making that sacrifice so they can continue to build wealth. This is an amazing episode, and I think you'll take a lot of gold away. So let's dive in and let's enjoy. So I think like my first way I want to attack this with you guys is that, I don't think it's new. I would consider you guys, you're younger, right, in this generation, but it's not new to our generation to build wealth. We've seen it a lot. We see it on TikTok. We see it on Instagram. We see all these people, putting out these big numbers. But I think the new part is like, how do you build wealth in a really powerful way? And so I really would love to first just dive into both of your mindsets. And I'd love an answer from both of you on this question of just how did you make the transition to real estate specifically as your avenue for creating wealth? So maybe just take us back to kind of where both of you started and how you made that transition to now you've kind of dialed in on different strategies that we'll talk about in this episode, but you've kind of dialed in as a larger asset class, from what I understand of you, on real estate in general. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey and kind of how that landed you to where we are now. But Cam, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah. So real estate specifically, I wasn't 100% sure. I knew from a young age I wanted to retire early. I saw that growing up, and I think I slowly started to get the understanding that real estate was great because my grandma used to own a motel, and then she still owns commercial assets in San Diego and has done pretty well for herself. And I saw the power in that. But I was trying to find avenues to retire early after college and started listening to podcasts and reading books. And then I think I did the thing most people do. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, fell down that slope. And then she read it. And then we were like, well, we should buy a house. And that's kind of how it started. And then once you start learning, you don't stop.
Like, why did you want to retire early? Was there a moment? Was there somebody said to you, or why that desire so early?
I spent a lot of time up at my grandma's in a smaller community in Northern California. I used to spend all my summers there when I was younger, and I would meet guys that are like in their 40s that spent their days golfing and fishing, And I was like, this is not normal. And they're like, yeah, they're able to do whatever they want when they want. And so some of them were from the medical field, some of them were engineering, different avenues. And I was like, I want to be able to do this sort of stuff at this age, not when I'm in my 60s.
Yeah, I have a mentor who always says that if you want to change your life, go get around somewhere, like some environment where things are just better. And like you get around the environment and you're like, oh shoot, like he gives this example of like, if you want to become a better golfer, like you mentioned golf, but like playing with better golfers, right? Like then you have to get better to kind of like stay in rapport with those people. So that's a powerful story, man. That's great. Nicole, what was your journey to that?
So Cameron and I think we both always like wanted to be in real estate. Like growing up with my mom, I remember she was always interested in real estate. She owns a couple of rentals of her own, but she's very like mom and pop about it. Like she just turned 70 and she still will get under the sink and fix something that's broken. Like she'll go and clean it herself and paint herself. So I always watched her kind of struggle like growing up with these rentals, but I didn't know that they could make her money. And then when Cameron and I first started dating, I specifically remember, because we lived in Oregon at the time, joking about moving to California and starting a flipping business, which we've never gotten into flips, but like that was kind of like a joke between us. Like, it was something I think we both always like kind of wanted, but we didn't know exactly what we were going to do to get into real estate. And then when we were living together, which this might be bleeding into another question you're going to ask, but when we were living together, we moved from Oregon to California. We moved to San Jose because I wanted to live in California so bad. I told my company that I would accept a promotion wherever they put me, as long as it was in California. And they put me in San Jose, and I didn't know anything about San Jose. And I did not realize that the pay raise I got was like $2 compared to one of the most expensive places to live. So for the first time ever, I'd always had a roommate, and then now Cameron was going to be my roommate. But for the first time ever, it was just going to be him and I. And in San Jose, I think we were paying $3,500.
It was like $2,400 for a studio.
$2,400 for a studio. And I had barely gotten a pay raise. He had just gotten out of college, so he was working. He ended up getting his engineering job, but at the time, like part-time at Nordstrom, like we were living off of like fumes and like our savings account. We had no money. It was pretty horrible. Like for the first time ever, we were able to live alone, but it was completely paycheck to paycheck. I was working super long hours because of the type of job. Plus I was trying to get overtime. And then he ended up getting a job 2.5 hours away. And so he was barely spending any time at the house. And so like, even though we were living this like dream of living together alone, it was like a prison that we were living in. So from there, we had to figure out like, how can we make our living expenses lower? Because and this is 7 years ago, by the way, it's $2,400. I mean, it was a lot of money. It was like all of our money.
Yeah.
So we had to find a way to like bring our living expenses down. And that's how we ended up getting a roommate in our apartment. And then that's like kind of what led us into house hacking.
Yeah. What would that same, just curious question, would that same studio apartment be the same price now, or has it gone up in the last 7 years?
That's where I think I got that 3,500 number from. I think when we looked, it had gone up. We were paying like 24. It had gone up to 27. Like as soon as we moved out, we were only there for 10 months. I'm sure now it's like in the 3,000s for a studio in San Jose. And it was a nice apartment, but we couldn't even, I picked it because it had all these like amenities like saltwater pools and taco trucks, but then we couldn't even do them together because we were working so much. So we had no time to spend together doing the fun things we wanted to do.
It's unfortunate, but I'm so glad you shared that, because I do think that is what so many people right out of college find themselves, right? They're kind of promised this dream, and then they realize like, wait a second, getting a job is harder. It doesn't pay as much as I thought it would pay. And everything's more expensive than I thought it would be.
I was like, just to be candid about pay, I think I was making $42,000 a year in Oregon. And I think my pay raise was to $47,000 a year. So like nothing at all. I mean, that's no money to like live off of. And
when you take the after tax pay, especially if you're getting paid on a W-2, it's like what? I mean, take off 20% off the top, at least maybe 25%. And then you're back to, so the numbers just start not adding up. But this is a great segue into you guys. Okay. So Cameron, you had this idea of like, okay, I want to buy a house. Like let's buy this house. So how did you first get started, or how did the conversation first come about between you two of like getting a roommate?
So when we wanted to move to Roseville, she was a little reluctant on getting a roommate, but I said, hey, my brother goes to Sac State. He lives 45 minutes away. He's down to move in with us. And we had gotten an apartment for like $1,800. I was like, it makes our rent, $600 a person. So we went from $2,400 to $1,200 to $600. So we did that, and the three of us lived in there for a while. And then shortly after that, his now wife moved in. So there was 4 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment, 2 couples. So it was now $450 a person. And we're like, okay, this is very livable. So we lived like that for a year and saved for our wedding and a house. And that's kind of how we got the idea of roommates. But when we started looking into real estate, roommates weren't our first choice. At first, we started interviewing turnkey companies and looking at long-term rentals in Arkansas or Kansas City, Missouri, and those sorts of places. And right when we started to get ready to buy a house, we're like, well, we can have roommates, and we can buy a house that we own and live in, or we can buy a place we've never been. So that was kind of our decision tree when it got to buying a house here and having roommates.
That's cool. And tell me about the first house that you guys ever purchased. What was that like?
It's the house that you're looking at in the background right here. It's this house. It's the house that we live in. We bought this. So we got married July 2020, which we had saved up and paid for on our own. And then we bought this house in November of 2020. So it was like a lot happening. And we've owned this house for 3.5 years now. We have had 6 roommates the entire time we've ever owned it. So we still, to this day, like on the other door over there, there's some people home probably. So we still live in the house that we first purchased. We still have the same amount of roommates.
4 people plus you two, so 6 total. Is that right?
No, there's 8 of us.
No,
Yes.
Well, yeah, there's 6 people plus us, and then actually our 2 original, the people who we shared a U-Haul with, the people that have lived in this house the exact same amount of time as us, just are moving out this month. So
sad.
I know. So now we're gonna have 5 roommates instead of 6 roommates. And then after they move out, we officially, everybody else we've brought in organically, like through, strangers. They were the last of our friends. I mean, they are our friends, but they're the last of the people we knew before they moved in. So now it's just people that we've met from online.
Yeah. And I want to talk about just how you found your tenants, how you vetted them, how did you know they were going to be a good fit? But what I find really fascinating about you too is a lot of people in the co-living or room rental space, which I'm very familiar with, so it's basically all I do right now, is, they'll start with 2 roommates and then they'll go to 3 and they'll go 4 and 5 and 6. But, did you guys start with saying, hey, we're going to buy a house for 6 additional people plus us? Was that your mindset going into this?
No, that's a super good question. So because like Cameron said, he had to convince me to even have his brother live with us in the apartment. And once his brother and his brother's wife lived with us, I was able to form a relationship with his brother that to this day I would not have had he not lived with us. Like the fact that I got to get so close to my brother-in-law would have never existed. Like he would still just be, Cameron's brother, but now he's like my friend. And when I saw, we would go to the grocery store together and go on runs. He would walk our dog or, watch our dog for us. Like to see the relationship I was able to form through having roommates made me okay with getting roommates in the main house, like the house that we're living in now. And the way that Cameron was able to pitch me on getting roommates in our main house was we're going to get a 2-bedroom house and we'll have 1 roommate. And so we looked at 2 bedrooms. We looked at a couple 3 bedrooms, but when you run the numbers, it's not that much more expensive for a bigger house. At least at the time it wasn't. And we can get so much more money. And so Cameron, when he first drove, he's the one who found this house on Zillow. It's a 5-bedroom house with a bonus room that we also rent out. When he drove me by this house, I said, that is the ugliest house I've ever seen. I don't even want to go inside of it. I hate everything about it. It's like, it was built in the 90s. It kind of has this pink hue to it. It's just a big box. Like the owners hadn't taken care of it at all. It just didn't look nice. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I was completely grossed out by it. And he convinced me to go look at it. And once we looked at it, I still hated it. And then we bought it anyway. And now we've turned it into a home. But no, we did not intend to have this many roommates. And even when we bought this house, we were only going to fill 1 or 2 of the rooms. And then as we're filling them, it becomes a little addicting because, you can get $800-900 to fill one of the rooms. And I was like, well, why have an empty room? Like, what's the point? And so we just kept filling it until they were all full. And then we've had the full amount of roommates since February of 2021.
Wow. First of all, amazing story. Nicole, congratulations on being so open to this. And Cameron, it sounds like you did a great job to really shape the experience so that it was a positive experience. Obviously, in this space, you see people have positive experiences and negative experiences, but the fact that you guys were able to and I want to get into that in the show here, it's just maybe what your criteria was or kind of how you advertise, because I think that's a big piece of what gets great tenants or what doesn't get great tenants in your home or members or roommates, whatever you call them. But I do have this question though, with the amount of people that you have in your home, do you allow couples to stay in a room or no? Is it only single people tell me about that a little bit.
So the people that are moving out that I just referenced, they're a couple and we only let them move in because we knew them before, but no, we will never live with another couple ever again. Couples is something I would not suggest that anyone have. You're not getting twice the rent, but you're getting twice the amount of people, twice the amount of usage. And every couple fights, including us. Like when we fight, we have to keep it quiet in our bedroom. I'm sure we fight in the kitchen sometimes when we need to be a little bit quieter. You're just inviting in a little bit more. And I don't even mean to use the word drama, but just a little more friction in the space than there needs to be. Even the couple that gets along the best has those little tiffs or talks to each other in a way that makes other people feel weird. And I'm not saying necessarily that this couple did that, just that that's a pretty common thing with couples. And so no, we will never rent to couples again. And I don't suggest it to anyone else.
I think that's really great advice. What were some of the things that you did to ensure, and I'd love to hear from both of you on this, kind of your mindset on like, what did you do? First of all, where did you advertise to find people? Was it all referral based? Were you posting on certain sites? If so, what were those sites? Because I really want people to kind of understand, like, you guys actually did it. You didn't just talk about it, you did it. And then obviously you put something in place that's working because you've been full and you're still doing it. So it must be working. I mean, it's years later and you're still doing it. So that's a positive thing. So where did you post? And then what were some of your criteria for letting someone live in your home? What did that look like?
Yeah. So sorry, Cam, I'm going to answer this one again. So I do I do all of the posting and the vetting and the interviewing. So when people first moved in, we had 4 friends and 2 people we didn't know move in. And then since then, I think I've gotten a total of 9 people that we didn't know. And a majority of those come through a website called roomies.com, which I absolutely love. It's free to use. It's kind of like a Tinder for roommates. Like, you can actually see other people's profiles, and then you can, like, not necessarily swipe, but you can like click on people and see what their criteria is and something that's interesting about them. I posted on Facebook Marketplace, but I've never actually had someone come through Facebook Marketplace that ended up moving in. Weirdly enough, I've had 2 people come from Craigslist, and they are, like, one of them has been here for 3 years. The other one's been here for 1.5 years. They're both like amazing roommates to live with. Craigslist is my last ditch effort. If I'm not getting any like responses on Roomies, I'll go to Craigslist. But yeah, weirdly enough, two out of the roommates have come through there. And then the other thing with Roomies that I really like is that you can actually see people. So all the other websites, you just put your room out there and you hope that people click on it. With Roomies, you can actually see the people who are looking for rooms in your area. And 2 of our people have come through us messaging them first. 2 of our rooms were not getting any, and this is separate, years apart from each other. They weren't getting any action. We weren't getting any responses. And so you can actually go and look at people who fit your criteria that have price points near what you want to charge, and you can message them first. So 2 people have come from us proactively messaging them.
We use Craigslist sometimes too. And it is funny to hear people say like Craigslist still works.
It does. And you get a lot of weirdos for sure. Like, most of it is weird. You get a weirder group of people, but like normal people still use Craigslist. It's just a little bit more few and far in between. But we've gotten 2 great roommates from there.
Have you ever had a situation where you've had to confront a roommate? And if so, do you have any kind of playbook or advice for people, for someone who might be like a cancer in the home, so to speak, and what you would do about them or with them, or how you would handle those situations?
Yeah, I have. I've had to have difficult conversations. My number one piece of advice is just get it over with and have the conversation, because I have anguished myself for weeks, if not months, just being so anxious about the conversation I have to have. And if I just had it, my anxiety would have been, it would have sucked, which it still sucked. I still had to have the conversation. So it's not like it didn't suck any less. I just put myself through all this extra torture of being worried about it instead of just having it. My advice is to always have the conversation in person. Don't do it over text message. And also don't do it in front of anyone else. It can be difficult with us. We have so many roommates that like, I can't really just like catch someone. It's more difficult to catch someone not in front of other people. So sometimes you have to ask them to like, meet you outside at a certain time, or ask them to speak privately. Don't ever like chastise or have a difficult conversation with someone in front of someone else. That's super rude and just unprofessional. So my advice is just do it. Just get the conversation over with.
I feel like that's a great life lesson, because I've had some conversations that I've been pushing off, not roommate conversations, but just life conversations that I'm like, strategizing, trying to think about how to have them. And sometimes just like,
yeah, just do it. And obviously be empathetic. Like, this is their living situation too, like you want to think about how they're going to take it, but you also have to think about how everyone else is feeling because of that person in the house. There's been certain situations that if it was just Cam and I think we would have just bit our tongues and put up with it if it's just us. But if you have multiple people in the house, like, you really need to think about the way it's affecting everyone else, and just know that you're doing it for them and not for yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to ask this question. So first of all, so cool. I actually didn't know you had that many roommates in your house, but that's actually what we do, right? We have this, it's anywhere between 6 and 10 for us. And some people just go crazy when they hear us talking about 10 people, or 8 or 6 or 7 or 8 in the house. Just, you guys are just true living, breathing examples of like, it's possible, it's working for you. You're in the house, you're having these difficult conversations that do come up sometimes. But I want to circle back around before we leave the part about, is there anything specifically you're looking for? Like, how do you vet them once you get those leads? Like when they come in, how are you choosing what to say no to? How are you choosing what to say yes to? And are there any red flags that people need to watch out when they're vetting people that would come into their home, or if this is strictly just an investment property for them?
Definitely. So either way, whether it's your home or someone else's, the first thing you need to do, and Cameron and I sat down and did this, is talked about our criteria. We did not want, which we did have some people move in with pets at the beginning. Then we decided after those couple pets, no pets. So that was one of our rules. We came up with a credit score criteria. What else? Make sure no evictions, 3 times the rent, all of the basics of like the type of qualifications that someone would need to have. And then after that, we just really wanted people that would fit in with like our lifestyle and the other types of people that we brought into the home. So the number one way I'd say you can attract people that are going to be good fits with your home, and like personalities, right? Because personalities is like one of the biggest things when it comes to so many people sharing a space, is the post that we put out is one of the most in-depth ones that's out there. Most people, when they post a room, they post a picture of a bare room and then 2 sentences about where it's located and how much rent is. Ours is probably too long. It's like 4 or 5 paragraphs. It talks about what we do for work, the fact that we bought this house with the intention to rent out the rooms, what we like to do for fun. I include pictures of our dogs. I include a picture of Cameron and I hiking with the dogs. I talk about the type of person we are looking for. I don't mention an age range, but everyone in our house is between the young 20s to mid 30s. So we're all in about the same range. So I put a lot into the post. I'd say that's the number one thing, is make sure that your post is not just, a couple pictures you took on your cell phone that you throw up with the number. You do need to they don't need to be professional, but you need to have all the lights on. Like my photos have fresh flowers in them. Like your home needs to be completely presentable. Like your mom's going to come over and judge you. Like it has to be perfect. And then you just need to put a lot into your description of who you're looking for and who you are, so you're attracting the right type of people. And then when people message me, I message back everyone, but the people I'm the most interested in, I always ask them when they're looking to move and why they're looking to move, because I'm the most interested in why they're looking. I want to know, are they looking to get out quickly because of a bad situation? Like what type of drama are they going to be bringing? I want to know what their situation is. And people who write me 1 or 2 sentences, I'm not super interested in. I like people who give me a pretty good, robust description of who they are, what they're looking for. I also like when they say why they were attracted to our post. So if I get a good feel from them just from messaging through whatever app or program I'm using, then I will set up a call like this. I never do phone calls. I always do some type of like FaceTime or Google Meets or something where I can see them. Because most of the time they're going to be either in their car or in their house, and I get to see an opportunity. I get to see what's behind them and a little bit more about them and how they present themselves. And then I run through, it's usually like a 30-40 minute call. I run through what it is to live with us. And then I also ask a lot of questions about themselves. Like I like people who grew up with a lot of siblings, because they're used to a full house and their house was probably a lot less clean than our house is going to be. So when people grew up with 3 brothers, I love that. If they lived in a sorority house, I love that. If they had roommates in college all the time, I love that. So I love people who have some experience living with multiple people. And then obviously if their lifestyle fits in with ours, as far as like the type of stuff they like to do. And then I also, because so many people share bathrooms, I like to try to match up as best as I can. You're not going to not get it if you don't do this, but I like when people's schedules are opposite. So right now we have a flight attendant and a preschool teacher that share a bathroom. And it's perfect because the flight attendant takes showers at 11 p.m. and the preschool teacher takes showers at 5 a.m. And their schedules are super opposite. And so, their bathroom usage usually is opposite from each other. Because if you have all 9-to-5ers getting ready at the same time in the same bathroom, someone's going to move out eventually because they can't get ready at the same time.
What did you have to do for parking on the house? Did you have to have them in San Jose? Like parking's a thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, and we're in Roseville, by the way. Sorry, I don't know if that was clarified.
Yeah,
we live in Roseville. San Jose was just the apartment. Now we're in Roseville.
Got it.
We bought a corner lot for that reason.
Yep.
And we have a 3-car garage.
3-car garage and a corner lot.
Yep. So we always suggest for people that want to do this, if they have more than 4 bedrooms, they probably want to have a corner lot.
Yep.
Or some sort of way to add additional parking.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your neighbors to be upset that there's always cars parked in front of their house.
And then we ask people specifically not to park in front of neighbors' houses. So you have to buy a house that fits the amount of cars, or you can't have that many people, because the quickest way to get a complaint is by having people park in front of their neighbors.
Well said. Very well said. Cameron, I want to ask you this. I want both your opinions on this, but Cameron, I'll kind of direct this to you. And that is just like, I want to talk about just design hacks. So you bought this house. I'm assuming because it had a bonus room, you had to do some closing off of that bonus room, whether it was a door or a wall. And then I'm curious just about the other things that you do to make the house flow with 8 people. I mean, are you using specific locks? Are you labeling cabinets and counter, space so people know where their stuff is? What are some of the design hacks? Did you do more than that? Did you add more walls and more doors, or anything around that? I'd love for the audience to hear, because that's always a big question we get and something people really have to think through.
Yeah, our bonus room actually already had a door, so we were squared away there. So that was easy. But yeah, we almost run it in some aspects like a short-term rental, and in other aspects, we also try to reduce friction everywhere. So everyone has their own shelf in the fridge. Everyone has their own shelf in the pantry. And then we have community shelves for all sorts of other items. We provide all the toiletries. We pay all the utilities. We have cleaners come through every other week. We have a maintenance person to do the yard every week. So we just tried to reduce friction everywhere we could, because if someone's always buying the toilet paper, they're going to be upset. If someone's always cleaning the bathroom, they're going to be upset. So if there's a source of friction, we tried to reduce it, and then tried to make sure people felt like they had their own space as well as other spaces. And then additionally, people, when they sign a lease, they have a bathroom they use. So they have like an assigned bathroom, and nobody uses the other bathroom.
And did you mention locks? Are you using certain locks or no?
We use a smart lock. So they just get a door code when they move in. And then if someone moves out. Oh, and there's locks on the bedrooms as well. There's a key lock.
There's a key lock. Okay. So you're still using keys for the bedroom doors, and they have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people want to lock their bedroom doors when they leave out of town or something, they can. I don't know that anybody does. I wouldn't know. I don't touch people's door handles. But there's a really good level of trust in the house. We've never, knock on wood, had issues with anything like that.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you said that, because I think a lot of people just think like, wow, as soon as you do this strategy, you're going to have issues. Like, that's the biggest thing I get. I'm sure you guys get it too, is like, that sounds like a nightmare. But to even hear you just say like, we have 8 tenants, knock on wood, like we haven't had that issue. It's like, in some ways that's mind blowing to someone who's looking at this strategy and maybe thinking about getting in. And I think it shows that, really you guys have the right house. Right, I think is a big key. You've vetted the members really well. I mean, Nicole, your process is a pretty thorough process, right? And it's analytical, but it's also like gut feel too.
It's a lot of gut feel. Yeah. There's sorry to interrupt you, but something else to talk about that. So I have a couple stress tests that I'll do during the interview process. I'm exchanging messages with someone. We set up a time to talk. I will text them and say, hey, I'm excited to speak with you on blank at blank. I will not send them a single reminder outside of that. I am not going to beg someone to come speak with me. If they forget about my call, that's it. I won't reach out to them again. If they reach out and, something happened and they forgot and they want to schedule again, I'll give them one more chance, and that is it. And then the same after that, once we do our interview, if I like them, I'll invite them to the home. I'll send them one text with the time and date and the address, and that is it. If they don't show up, if they're late, anything like that, I don't handle those, because if you're in the interview process and you're not doing a good job, it's like a first date. If someone's not nice on their first date, they're only going to get worse from there. So I've had people who have ghosted me, not showed up late, had to keep moving the time, all of those things. And all those people sucked every time. And every time I gave them another chance, they just kept doing it. So if someone is not respecting your time, it's only going to get worse if you let them in your home. So you want people who show up early, everyone always sends me thank you texts afterwards, like good follow-up. Those are the type of people that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well said. How do you handle pets? And is that something you allow people to have in the home?
No pets.
We have 2 dogs, and they're annoying enough on their own because we have dogs. And so a lot of people will say this, they have animals and they want to bring people in, but they feel like it's not fair to not let other people have animals. And that's not true. It's your house. You can have whatever you want. You just have to be upfront about it. So like I said, we post pictures of the dogs there's 2 pictures of each dog and us with the dogs in the post. I like to ask people in the interview if they grew up with dogs, if they're familiar with dogs. When they come and see the house in person, I make sure they spend time with the dogs to make sure my dogs like them, but they're not allowed to have animals. And that's that's fine. It's your prerogative to not have animals. But I would strongly suggest against animals, because even the best behaved dogs or cats are still animals and cats, and you can ward off other people who would be great fits but are allergic to cats or allergic to dogs.
Right. So you kind of reduce your options when you start allowing other pets in there.
Totally. And they're just messy, they're stinky. Like ours are stinky. Yeah. We give them baths, but they still smell bad.
Can we talk about a little bit about just what you receive in rent from your, I don't know how much you're willing to share, and you don't have to share as much as you want, but I'd love to know, like, hey, this is what we pay on the house. Because here's why. You guys thought about, there's kind of different types of people in this space. I want to kind of rewind to something you said at the beginning of this episode. You said, we were in this studio apartment or whatever, that first apartment you were saying, and you said we wanted to reduce our expenses as much as possible. And a lot of people don't think about it that way, honestly, is what I've learned. They think about, how do I make more? And that's fine, right? But I think it was Benjamin Franklin who first said, like, $1 saved is $1 earned. So it's like, hey, there are two ways to make money. You can go out and we can try to increase our income. That's amazing. Or we can try to reduce our expenses. And house hacking or co-living is a way to reduce your expenses. I guess it is kind of by producing more income now that I think about it, but it really does reduce your living expenses. So I'd love to kind of understand, or at least at a very high level, help people understand, are you living for free? Do you actually make a little bit of money living in your house? Anything you want to share with that or don't want to share with that is totally fine, but just maybe give people kind of an idea of how that works.
Yeah, when we were first looking, our whole goal was to live for cheaper. So our calculator has what you put in your current rent, what's the difference? Are you saving money or not? So our whole goal was to pay less rent than we were currently paying. It wasn't to cash flow because you're in California.
Right. But
yeah, since we've moved in, our most recent leases, we make $4,700 a month in gross rent. Mortgage is like $2,800. Landscaper and cleaners like $550. All the other expenses, it works out to being like we $4,200 total in expenses, and we bring in $4,700. So we live for free and save a little bit for CapEx and vacancy, kind of deal. But we're getting equity every month too.
Yeah, and I think if you were to count yourself both as renters, the house would be if you were both like, hey, let's put a price on what you guys are both paying, then it's an amazing cash flowing deal.
Right? Yeah.
And that is what's so cool about it. Do you think when you move from this house, you'll keep it and continue to co-live it like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least for a couple of years.
I love it. Do you have any hacks on keeping utilities down or monitoring them, or no? Do you just let people have the temperature at whatever they want to have it at, use as much water as they want to use it at? Any hacks around that?
We have smart thermostats, but other than that, no. I mean, it's people are living here. You just try to do your best, but you also don't want people to feel like they're living somewhere where there's a whole bunch of rules.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of our tenants or roommate, we call them roommates, but our longest ones have been 40 months. So there's something to be said that is it really worth saving $12 in water when then you have to do another turn and spend how many hours of your time trying to find somebody new to move in?
And I've been asked that before. Someone was like, how do you keep people from taking really long hot showers? And I was like, I don't know. I don't pay attention. And some people, I take long hot showers. Like some people probably do, but yeah, like Cameron just said, like, do you really want people to live in your house and feel like they can't, if you take a shower for 10 minutes, you're going to get a knock on the door telling you to get out. Like, we just let people live their lives. That's also why I like people who grew up with a lot of siblings, because I bet their dad yelled at them about keeping the thermostat down and not, turning off the lights all the time. So you can just kind of figure out those personality traits from people before they move in. And I actually did. So we pulled up our numbers. We were looking at this before this. And our utilities, some months the utilities are $600 for AC and stuff like that. But I did an average over the past 24 months. We pay $391 per month, and that's with electric, sewer, and trash. And then our gas bill, which sometimes is $400 during the winter, our average is only $163 over the past 24 months. So between those two things, it's $560 average. Some months are a lot more expensive than that, but like Cameron said, like we're going to be able to cut it down $20-$40. Is that really worth making people feel like they're not living in a space that they can call their own? To us, that's not worth it.
Yeah, there's no reason to step over $1 to save a nickel at that point. Like you're saving a little, but you're going to have more turns. And
if you're noticing someone's leaving the light on the time, sure, just be like, hey, do you mind turning the light off at nighttime? Thanks so much. But most people are pretty cognate. What's the word? Yeah, whatever that word is. Respectful. Yeah, most people are pretty respectful about your space. So if you're just bringing in people who are respectful of other people's space, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, being raised with 8 siblings myself and understanding that I did have a father that would say stuff Like,
Yeah.
Don't leave the door open. We can't heat the outdoors, right?
Oh, I definitely, and there are times like in the summer, once it starts to get hot, because we don't really run our AC for, a good amount of we try to put off for as long as we can until the summer. Once we start to run the AC normally, I'll send out, a text that says, hey, we're starting to run the AC during the day. And I've jokingly been like, hey, I'm not paying to heat the neighborhood. Can we make sure we close our windows? But like sometimes we'll go outside and we'll see someone's window open. I'm not going to go knock on the door and ask them to close the window. Like, again, it's not going to save us that much money, and people are allowed to live their lives how they want. If they're doing it all the time and they're being super rude about it, then sure, I'll say something. But most of the time, it's not a big deal.
I like the way you guys think about that. Well, I think there's so many tips there that are just so helpful. I'd like to transition to one last subject if we can, and really just talk about, something I'm very impressed with both of you in is just as I watch your Instagram, you guys are posting together, you guys are working together, you guys are running a meetup together. You're doing a lot of really cool stuff together. And, one of the things that I see people do, and honestly, not just in intimate partnerships, but like also just like partnerships in general, like just business partnerships, is they struggle with finding a good partnership, and B, once they're in one, actually getting along with the other person in a meaningful way. So I'd love, first of all, just your mindsets. Like, how do you both think about your partnership together in life, but then also, obviously, you guys are doing this business together as well. And I know you're doing a lot more than just what we've talked about, but I know I kind of honed in on the house hacking because I know our audience just is going to be so all over that. And you guys just provided so much gold. So how do you both think about your partnership? And maybe as a little add-on to that question, I would just say, and do you have any tips or tricks for how you've been able to kind of maintain your personal relationship and also have this business relationship as well?
Man, it's a work in progress. I think we both tried to help each other with everything for a long time.
Yeah.
And then ended up making it like always providing our opinion. But as we've gotten farther and grown, we've decided to like separate more and more and say, hey, you handle this lane, I handle this lane. And then if we need help, we'll ask questions, or if there's something wrong at the end, we'll ask and try to like problem solve with each other. But it's an ongoing lesson or teaching moment. We're always trying to get better at it, but it's not perfect. But I will say a lot of our conversations do end up revolving around business sometimes. Yeah. So that is kind of a hard part sometimes. So Nicole at dinner was like, hey, don't talk about real estate. Let's just hang out. So we try to have some breaks here and there.
Do you mind me asking, Cameron, what those lanes are? Like, as best you could describe them now? I
guess currently Nicole does like for the, house hacking. She does all the tenant finding and stuff. I usually handle the financial portion. Mm-hmm. We used to both do parts of like the management side of Airbnbs, and now I do all of that, and I'll ask her questions when I have questions, and she's focusing more just on being her real estate agent, so she can help other house hackers and stuff. So we can focus on the 20, not be too spread thin, trying to do too many different things.
It sounds like you've really kind of leaned more into your strengths and what you guys maybe more enjoy or are good at. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Really beautiful. Really beautiful. Nicole, what's your mindset on that? Or what tips do you have on maybe couples or partnersps that are kind of working together and trying to find?
Oh man, I have so much.
This could be a whole other podcast.
Oh my God. It really, on to the end. it really could. Well, I'll say first of all that Cameron and I go to relationship or marriage therapy. We go to counseling. We have since we've been married. We both come from divorced parents. Like neither of us really have a healthy relationship in our life to model. So one of our goals in getting married was to always have a base of therapy that we could go to. And so we meet with her probably once every 6 months, 8 months or so. And we have for the past 3.5 years. So I would say going to therapy is huge. You don't have to be struggling to go to therapy. There's sometimes where we go and we think we don't have anything to talk about. And then something comes up and we're able to have a discussion. But having a third party that can hear you guys is really, really helpful. So that's my number one. Everyone should go to therapy, whether it's their own or a relationship with each other. If you have a strained relationship with your mom, you guys should probably go to therapy. Like, I think it's really okay to talk about and it's healthy. Every single person in our house knows that we go to therapy. Like, we're really open about it. So I'd say that's one of the biggest ones. If we have a frustration, it's a lot easier to talk about with somebody else and have that person help be a soundboard for us. So that's my biggest one with our personal relationship. And then our working relationship, like Cameron said, we've really had to kind of stay in our own lanes because we're two of the most opinionated, stubborn people I know. We have a really hard time letting go of control. And so we're pretty nosy. And if we hear the other person having a conversation, we're like, well, you know what, you could have done better. So we really have had to take steps away from that. And then also right now we're in our bedroom, we're at Cameron's desk. My work from home desk is 2 feet over there. I got an office in my brokerage. I started renting my own office so I could get out of the bedroom, because I was like, no two living humans are supposed to go to bed every day together, wake up together, work all day next to each other, and then go back to bed together. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster. So I pay $300 a month to have my own space that I go into and I work from every single day. So that's another big one, is like, because we rent out all of our bedrooms, there's nowhere for either of us to go. So sometimes you just have to like physically separate yourselves, as well as like separating your duties. But yeah, those are the big ones.
Those are some amazing tips. Very nicely done. And so as we wrap this up, guys, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being so vulnerable about the therapy as well. I think that's something that I wish more people would talk about openly. And so the fact that you just shared that is absolutely beautiful. It's been a big part of my life, big part of my wife, Rachel, and I's life as well. And can definitely also in addition to how you just shared it so beautifully, vouch for the benefits of it myself. And I think it's really cool actually that you said something, because I think a lot of people think when they think about therapy, they think like, well, that's a once a week thing, right? And it feels intense and it feels big. I kind of felt this like, because I actually thought that's where you're going with it, like go to therapy every week. And you're like, I kind of felt my own self exhale on that piece of advice when I was like, it doesn't have to be like, it could be once a month, it could be once a quarter, right? But that there's some routine there, I think is really cool.
And we do that self check-in.
And there was a point where I think we didn't go for like 6 or 8 months, just because we hadn't scheduled something else and things were like okay for a little bit. We hadn't gone for a while. And then when we felt like we needed to go back, it wasn't this big, we need to go to therapy together discussion that was scary and everything was falling apart. It's like, oh, let's just go see Carmen again. Like, we haven't seen her in a little while. Let's like go check in. So if you establish it when you guys are in, so now I'm giving marriage advice, but if you guys establish it when you guys are in the beginning and say, hey, we just want to learn healthy communication with each other. Like, let us tell you kind of everything about us and you tell us what you think would work. Then when you need to go back, or if you're only doing it once a quarter, which is totally fine, you have a base to check in with, and it's not this big, scary like therapy discussion. It's just, we're just going to go talk to Carmen. It's fine.
Well said. Cameron, just out of curiosity, was that tough for you to get over the hurdle to like go to therapy? And I know we're kind of taking this direction, but I think for guys, sometimes it's even more it's even more like, we can figure it out. We don't ask for directions. We don't need advice. We got it.
No, I think when we first initially talked about it, I was like, no, it's a good idea. I mean, I didn't have a solid relationship to base marriage off of. I'm like, hey, we can learn from people that know how to do these things. And it's just like anything, co-living, house hacking, anything you're doing. If there's someone that already has an idea of how to handle those emotions or situations, you're going to learn and overcome them quicker and easier.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, Cameron's so open and really pushes for like coaching and like he just said, like learning from other people who know ahead of time. And he's like that in his business. So I think if you're a male that's struggling, or if you're a female that's struggling to convince your male partner, if you would go, to a coach for business, if you would go to a fitness trainer for fitness, why shouldn't you go to someone who has a degree in communication to learn how to talk to each other? Like it's no different than going to anyone else that can help get you to a place that's a little bit further.
Mic drop. That's beautiful. Well, so well said. So well said. Was my final question for both of you. I'll kind of wrap it into two questions in one. And that is, what's the future look like for both of you in terms of just your vision for where you're going with your life? I know you're building some Airbnbs now, you're managing, and then I would love for you to just share with people how they can reach out to you. I know you have kind of several different avenues that you're supporting people and helping them. And I'd love for you to just talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. So for my personal business, I own and manage 8 units in 3 markets currently. So full steam ahead on trying to scale that business this year and next year, over the next couple of years.
What kind of units?
I would like to have 28 is what I have, I think, on my 3-year vision. So 28 units under management.
Those are short-term rentals, like Airbnb units.
Yeah, short-term rentals, yeah. And then personally, we'd like to buy, I'd say 1 this year and have about 6 in the next 3 years. And then also we do want to buy another rent by the room house hack, but something that has an ADU on the property. So when our family visits, they can stay in the ADU. So we got a short-term rental.
Love it.
On our house hack.
Nicole, what about for you?
So I'm a real estate agent in the Sacramento, Roseville market. And so for kind of like Cameron was saying, for a long time, I was really helping, which I still do the management for our house hack, but I was doing the management for Airbnb. I was really involved in a lot of that. And so since Cameron is full-time taking it over, I have basically separated myself and I am just full-time agent. That's what I do day in, day out. So for me, it's focusing on that, on my agent business, growing that, continuing to be able to help sellers and buyers. I'd love to help more single family house hackers. Obviously, is what I do. I know how to do it really, really well. I know how to help find the house. I know how to help manage it. There's only so many people who want to do a single family house hack. So if I can find those people, like those are the people that I can help. I get a lot of people that will come to me after they buy a house with a different agent and want my help, where if they've just asked me at the beginning, I could have helped them from the very beginning. So I'd love to help more single family house hack clients. And then like Cameron just said, we do want to buy a house for ourselves where we still rent by the room, but we really want an ADU. And this is something I think to speak for people who want some like privacy, or they, think about what about their friends or family that come and stay. Like my family's from Oregon. I don't have any family here in California. My mom just turned 70. Like she's getting older and she still wants to visit. And I haven't had a place for her to sleep in 3.5 years. Like unless someone wants to sleep on an air mattress in our bedroom, there's nowhere for someone to stay. And we've made that sacrifice for a really long time. And it was okay for a while, but you only have so many years left with your friends and family. So getting a space where we can allow people to come and stay with us, and then probably renting it out short term while they're not there is a really big goal for us.
That's so cool. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in any of that, whether they're managing your units? And Cameron, do you want to share the markets? Are you managing in anywhere in California, or are there specific markets you're looking at?
So Placer County, Lake Tahoe is one market. Oakhurst, Yosemite, so the Yosemite Southgate entrance. I have about 5 units there. And then also Grass Valley and Auburn, which is a smaller market in between where we live in Roseville and Lake Tahoe. It's kind of like a foothills market. There's some wineries, a lot of hiking. Is the third market I'm in. So focused on just those 3 markets. Don't really want to expand around any further than those.
What's the best way to reach you?
Best way would just be Instagram, or you can email me at cameron@remoteretreats.co.
Okay. Would you drop your Instagram handle here? We'll link it in the show notes as well, but if you just say it on here, that way we can make sure we get it right.
It's househacking_masters.
And Nicole, do you want to drop any other information there?
Same thing. You can reach out to us. We check our DMs every day. It's on our list of things to do. Sometimes we don't get to all of them, but we check every single DM. There's also a Calendly link if you want to speak with me directly. There's a 15-minute discovery call for the local area. So if you have any questions about Placer or Sacramento County, I can answer any of those questions in there.
That's beautiful. If you send that to it, we'll reach out and grab that from you, and then we'll link that in the show notes as well. So, well, guys, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you for letting me take a little bit more time than even I was planning on taking with you, but just pure gold. I really appreciate it, and just so excited for this to reach the audience. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Sam. We appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a killer episode. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening. Go ahead, share this with someone who might be thinking about house hacking, but hasn't pulled the trigger yet. Because like Nicole said, I think in the episode, you've got to eventually take action. You can learn all this advice, but you got to take action. And of course, if you're interested in learning how to either house hack, or you're interested in learning, how to actually co-live and do this as an investment strategy around the United States, then you can join me for my next 5-day challenge, which is www.scaleyourrealestate.com to register for a live challenge where we deep dive into even more. But for now, take this as an example, and let's go ahead and share it with someone who needs to take that action to reduce their expenses and increase their income through house hacking. I thought this was a brilliant episode. It's one of my favorite episodes, and honestly, one of the most unique ones in the fact that it's not an investor doing this. They're investors, but they're living in the house too, which is so beautiful, and they're doing it in such a beautiful way. They're showing you and so many others that this is truly possible. Go enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you dearly for all of your support.